Under the amber lights of the Harvard auditorium, I stood staring at the only two empty seats in the front row, one marked with my parents' names. I had told them weeks ago, and their reply was the same as always. "We're too tired. Sweetheart, your sister just got back from her trip." I smiled at the screen then, typed 2 words, "Rest well," and hit send. That was the end of that conversation, but the beginning of something else. Because what they didn't know was that tomorrow morning, I'd be standing on this same stage, delivering the valedictorian speech for Harvard's graduating class of 2024. And when the cameras panned over the audience, their seats would be the only ones left empty. My name is Evelyn Cross, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the background character in my own family. My younger sister, Claire, has always been the center of gravity, the golden child. Even when I tried to shine, it was like standing under her spotlight, invisible in the glow meant for her. When I think back to childhood, I don't remember laughter. I remember the silence that followed every celebration that wasn't mine. In our small Indiana town, where church attendance doubled as a social scoreboard, my parents' pride had a name: Claire Cross. She was everything they wanted: graceful, radiant, adored. I was the one introduced as Claire's sister. It started small, teachers comparing us, neighbors doting on her while barely glancing at me. But over time, that kind of invisibility becomes a habit you carry in your bones. I remember my 10th birthday. The living room was draped in pink and gold balloons, but none of them were for me. The cake said, "Congratulations, Claire," because she'd won her first dance trophy. I smiled in the pictures anyway, holding a slice of cake where my name was spelled wrong on the napkin: Evelyn. That night, when the guests left, I found a thin, free notebook Dad had picked up from a work conference sitting on the table as my only gift. I opened it, wrote my name correctly on the first page, and began writing everything I couldn't say out loud. It became my first act of rebellion, writing my way into existence. Claire lived 2 steps ahead of me, even though she was younger. Every teacher adored her. Every family dinner revolved around her latest recital or hairstyle. I became the one who fixed things: the Wi-Fi, the Christmas lights, the DVD player. My worth was measured in utility, not pride. The only person who ever saw me fully was my grandmother, Helen. She'd come by with cinnamon cookies and lavender perfume. And one night when she found me in the garage fixing an old radio, she said softly, "You don't need applause to be valuable, sweetheart. Some stars burn quietly." That line rooted itself in me like a secret mantra. By 17, I'd mastered the art of invisibility. Straight A student, debate captain, volunteer. Still, my parents' eyes never lingered. One spring, I won a state essay contest with a paper called The Price of Silence. The local paper called our house asking for an interview. Mom answered, cheerful at first, then flat once she realized the story wasn't about Claire. "Oh, that's nice," she said. "But we're busy packing for Claire's showcase in Chicago." The conversation slid away, back into her orbit. I folded my award letter into a drawer that night and told myself, stop expecting to be seen. But Mr. Lee, my English teacher, refused to let me disappear. He saw what I couldn't admit, that my silence was survival, not serenity. He handed me a Harvard application one afternoon and said, "Apply. You've spent your life writing about being unseen. Let's see what happens when the world finally looks." I laughed it off. Harvard wasn't for girls like me. But that night, I wrote my essay anyway, about finding belonging in invisible spaces, about how silence can be both a wound and a weapon. Months later, the acceptance letter came during a snowstorm. My parents barely looked up when I told them. "Harvard," Mom said. "That's far, isn't it? Maybe stay closer to home. Claire could use your help next year." Dad nodded like it was settled. I nodded too, quietly folding the letter and whispering to myself, they don't see it yet, but someday they will. And they did, just not the way they expected. Harvard became my sanctuary. I worked part-time in the library, lived on thrift store coats and instant ramen, but every book I shelved felt like a brick in the foundation of the life I was building myself. I joined the Women in Tech program, mentored by Dean Alvarez, A woman who taught me that talent means nothing if it isn't shared. I learned how to turn data into empathy, research into impact. Still, the ache remained. Every ceremony, every award. I looked out and saw empty seats reserved for family that never came. I sent photos home at first. They never replied. Then I stopped sending them. Because you can only reach out so many times before your hands start to tremble from the weight of disappointment. Years passed, and Harvard became both battlefield and home. Until one winter night, an email changed everything. Congratulations, Evelyn Cross. You have been selected as the 2024 commencement speaker. I stared at the screen, trembling. The girl who once begged to be seen would now speak to thousands. I didn't tell my parents. When Mom texted about Claire's trip to Europe, I simply typed, "Rest well," because this time, I wouldn't chase them to fill the empty chair. I'd fill it myself, with truth. The morning of graduation shimmered like a secret too beautiful to hold. The sky over Cambridge was the color of fresh linen, and sunlight spilled across the cobblestones like it was trying to baptize the moment. My cap and gown hung by the window, deep crimson, heavy with meaning. In a few hours, I'd stand before the world and speak words I had once written to heal myself. In my dorm room, my best friend, Maya, adjusted her tassel in the mirror. She'd been my anchor for years. The kind of friend who noticed when I hadn't eaten or when I pretended not to care about a text that never came. "Nervous?" she asked, half grinning. I looked at the clock. "No," I said softly. "Just ready," because I was ready to let the world hear the story that had been burning inside me for 2 decades. Ready to stop whispering apologies for my own existence. Before we left, I checked my phone one last time. There it was. Mom's message, sent at midnight. "We're too tired from Claire's trip to attend your graduation. Honey, we'll celebrate when we see you next time. Love you." I stared at it for a long moment. It didn't hurt like before. It just felt expected. I typed back 2 words, the same ones that had become my quiet armor. "Rest well." Then I turned the screen face down. When we arrived at the ceremony, the campus pulsed with joy. Families filled the seats, cameras flashing, laughter echoing across Harvard Yard. My stomach fluttered, not with nerves, but with the sharp edge of memory. I handed the usher my seating card for family guests. 3 seats reserved under my name, one for Grandma Helen, one for Maya, and one intentionally left blank. The usher frowned slightly at the empty slot. "Do you want me to cross this one out?" "No," I said with a faint smile. "Keep it. Just right. Reserve for who shows up." He looked confused but nodded. Grandma arrived just as the orchestra began tuning their instruments. She wore a soft blue coat and carried her cane like a royal scepter. When she reached me, she pressed a kiss to my cheek and whispered, "You left one seat open, didn't you?" I nodded. "Always." Her eyes sparkled. "Good. Sometimes absence deserves to be seen, too." When the bells began to toll, I walked to my place among the graduates, my heart beating in rhythm with the music. The air hummed with celebration, with expectation, but under that noise was a silence I knew too well. The space left by the ones who couldn't be bothered to come. When my name was announced as commencement speaker, I rose to my feet. The world blurred for a heartbeat, then came into focus as I stepped onto the stage. The microphone gleamed under the morning sun, waiting. I took a breath and began. "When they didn't see us, we learned to see each other." The words echoed across the yard, sinking into the stillness that followed. I saw faces lift, heard the faint catch of breath from somewhere in the crowd. I spoke about invisibility, about growing up in the quiet corners where no one clapped. I spoke about how silence can shape you, teach you how to listen, how to build something out of what others overlook. My eyes drifted toward the family section, rows of proud parents, tears glinting, hands waving, and there, between my grandmother's soft smile and Maya's camera, sat the 3rd seat, empty, but not lonely. A bouquet of white tulips and a single crimson rose rested on it, an offering of peace, not pain. I lifted my gaze to the sea of crimson robes before me. "For those of us who grew up believing we didn't have a seat at the table," I said, my voice steady now. Stop waiting for one. Build your own. And when you do, make room for someone else. A ripple moved through the crowd, soft at first, then rising into applause. The sound grew, folding over itself until it was no longer applause, but something larger, like the roar of waves. I looked up into the sunlight, blinking back tears, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was performing. I felt seen. When the ceremony ended, students threw their caps into the air. I did too, laughing through tears as mine spun against the sky like a promise finally kept. Grandma met me halfway through the crowd, pressing her trembling hand to my heart. They may have been tired, she whispered, but the world is wide awake now. That night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications, mentions, messages. The university had posted my speech online. By the time I reached my dorm, it already had millions of views. Comments flooded in from strangers saying my words had made them cry, made them feel seen. And then came the calls. First Mom, then Dad, then Claire. I let the phone vibrate until it went silent. Then I turned it off, letting the quiet settle around me like armor. Because for once, the silence wasn't theirs. It was mine. By morning, the quiet had changed. It wasn't emptiness anymore. It was clarity. Sunlight slid through the dorm window, catching on the edges of my speech still folded on the desk. The paper looked almost golden, like something sacred. My phone, face down and silent, had become a symbol of everything I'd stopped chasing. When I finally turned it over, there were dozens of missed calls and texts. From Mom, "Why didn't you tell us?" People are asking why we weren't there. From Dad, "You embarrassed us. Everyone thinks we don't care." From Claire, "You made us look like villains. Nice job." I read every message slowly, not with anger, but with an odd detachment, as if their outrage were just another assignment I'd already finished. Once, those words would have shredded me, sent me running to explain, to justify, to fix what wasn't mine to fix. But not today. Maya found me in the cafe by the Charles River, nursing a black coffee gone cold. She slid into the seat across from me, eyes searching. They still calling, nonstop. "You going to answer?" "No," I said, stirring the coffee absently. "Today isn't about explaining myself. It's about graduating." She smiled, small but fierce. "Good. Because the rest of the world can't stop talking about you." She wasn't exaggerating. My inbox was flooded. Messages from professors, journalists, even a TEDx organizer in D.C. The Harvard social account had clipped the line, "Build your own seat." Sue, and it was everywhere. People posted photos from their own graduations, marking empty chairs with handwritten signs, "Reserved for who shows up." I should have been elated, but instead, I felt something quieter, an ache that sat between pride and grief, because the whole world had seen me, but the people I once loved most still hadn't. Later that evening, I called Grandma. Her voice came warm, steady as always. "I saw the news." "Darling," she said, "you didn't just speak. You revealed something the world needed to hear." "They're furious," I admitted. "They say I humiliated them." "Let them be humiliated," she said calmly. "Shame is a teacher. It forces people to see what comfort allows them to ignore. You didn't shame them. You told the truth. And sometimes, truth is the only mirror that works." Her words landed softly but deep, like the final piece of a puzzle sliding into place. That night, I sat under the elm tree in Harvard Yard where the stage still stood, now half dismantled. The empty chair from my speech replayed in my mind, not as a wound, but as a quiet kind of freedom. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to fill it. I just needed to honor it. When I got back to my apartment near Harvard Square the next day, Grandma was waiting with breakfast and the morning newspaper. My photo filled the front page. "Harvard graduate's empty chair speech goes viral." She had circled it in pen. Beneath the headline was the shot of me looking toward the empty seat, the tulips glowing like a secret promise. "They're still calling," I said quietly. Grandma folded her paper, adjusting her glasses. "Then maybe it's time to let them listen." So I called. I put the phone on speaker between us. Mom answered immediately, her voice tight. "Evelyn." What on earth were you thinking? The neighbors are calling. The pastor called. You made it sound like we abandoned you. I looked out the window, watching the morning light shift over the rooftops. You didn't show up, I said evenly. I just didn't hide it. That's not fair, Mom snapped. We were tired. From Claire's trip. I finished for her. The silence that followed was sharp, brittle. Dad's voice came next, defensive, almost pleading. You should have told us you were valedictorian. We would have come if we'd known it was important. Grandma leaned closer to the phone. You mean if it was something you could brag about? She said, her tone measured but merciless. Mother, Dad muttered. You don't understand. Claire always needed more, and Evelyn didn't. Grandma cut in. I remember her winning the state essay award while you were helping Claire pick a prom dress. That was years ago, Mom whispered. And she remembered, Grandma said softly. She remembered enough to write her own ending. The silence that followed was heavier than accusation. It was truth settling into the cracks. Finally, Dad said, almost breaking, we didn't mean to hurt her. We just thought she didn't need us. I swallowed hard. I never needed perfection, I said quietly. Just presence. No one spoke for a while. Then Grandma's voice, low and sure, filled the space. Love doesn't wait for convenience. It shows up. And you didn't. There was a faint tremor in Mom's voice. We didn't realize. That's the problem, Grandma replied. You never looked. I took a breath, steadying the tremor in my own chest. I'm not calling to blame you, I said. I'm calling because I'm done explaining. But I'll give you one more chance, if you want to hear the truth. Not your version. Mine. Come to my apartment tomorrow night. No excuses. No guests. Just family. Mom hesitated. We'll think about it. Grandma reached forward and pressed the red button, ending the call herself. For a moment, the silence between us felt sacred. She turned to me, eyes soft. You've opened the door, she said. Whether they walk through it or not, that's on them. I stared at the phone, my heart both heavy and free. Do you think they'll come? I think shame weighs less than curiosity, she said with a faint smile. And curiosity always wins. Outside, the bells of Memorial Church began to toll again. Slow, deliberate, counting down the hours to a conversation 20 years overdue. The next evening, I set the table like I was preparing for both a battle and a prayer. 4 bowls, 4 spoons, and 1 extra chair I hadn't decided whether to fill. The apartment smelled faintly of tomato soup and lemon oil. I wanted the room to feel calm, unthreatening. Truth could cut deep enough without help. Grandma arrived first, moving slowly, her blue coat folded neatly over her arm. You don't need armor tonight, she said, touching my shoulder. Just honesty. When the knock came, it was hesitant, almost apologetic. My father entered first, shoulders tight under his suit. My mother followed, clutching her purse as if it might shield her from guilt. Claire came last, hair perfectly straightened. The smell of designer perfume faint but familiar. They looked around the apartment, their eyes landing on the framed newspaper article hanging near the door. The headline, Harvard graduate speech inspires millions. Beneath it, the photo, me glancing toward the empty chair. No one spoke for a while. The sound of spoons clinking against bowls filled the silence. Finally, I said quietly, "Thank you for coming." Dad exhaled, rubbing his hands together. "We didn't come to fight, Evelyn. We just need to understand." I nodded. "That's good. Because tonight isn't about blame. It's about what's been missing." I watched them shift in their seats. 3 people, so used to hearing me silent, they didn't know what to do when I wasn't. "Do you remember my 10th birthday?" I asked. Mom blinked. "The one with Claire's dance cake," she murmured. "Of course. I remember too," I said softly. "I remember the balloons, the guests, the way everyone sang for her while I held a slice with my name spelled wrong. That was the first time I realized I could be in the room and still not exist." Claire looked down, her spoon motionless. Dad cleared his throat. "We didn't mean—" "I know," I interrupted gently. "You never meant to. That's what made it harder." I spoke slowly, each word like air being released after years underwater. You missed my science fair because of Claire's prom fitting. You missed my essay award because of her recital. You missed my fellowship presentation because you were helping her move. You told people I was independent, capable, fine on my own. But independence isn't strength when it's built from neglect. It's survival. Mom's face went pale. Her lips trembled, but no sound came. Then she whispered, "We thought you didn't need us." "I did," I said simply. "I just stopped asking when I realized I'd never come first." The silence stretched long enough for the candles to flicker unevenly. Then Grandma leaned forward, her voice steady as stone. "She's not saying you were bad parents. She's saying you were absent. And absence, when practiced long enough, becomes cruelty dressed as routine." My father's eyes glistened, though his jaw stayed firm. "We gave both of you everything, not presents," Grandma said quietly. "That's the only thing children remember." Claire finally spoke, her voice small. "I was jealous of you, you know." I turned to her, startled. She kept her eyes on the table. "You never needed anyone's approval. You built yourself. I thought if I admitted you were stronger, I'd disappear." Something softened in me then, an ache that wasn't anger anymore. "You didn't have to disappear," I said. "There was enough space for both of us. You just didn't see it." We ate in silence for a while, the sound of rain starting outside. When I spoke again, it was quieter, steadier. "I'm not ready to forgive," I said. "And that's okay. Forgiveness takes time. But I am ready to rebuild. Slowly." Truthfully, Mom looked up, eyes glistening. "How?" "By showing up," I said. "Text me before something matters. Come to the back row if you have to. Take a blurry picture. Just be there." Dad nodded once, voice low. "We'll try." We should have tried sooner. Grandma smiled faintly, her gaze fixed on me. "Love doesn't fix the past," she said softly. "It shows up for the future." After dinner, they wandered around the apartment, lingering at the framed photo from commencement, the empty chair, the tulips, the light. My mother's fingers brushed against the frame. "You kept the chair," she whispered. "I did," I said. "It reminds me who's earned a place." Claire smiled through tears. "Then send me the next date that matters. I'll come. Even if I'm late, I'll come." When they left, the hallway smelled faintly of rain and forgiveness. I washed the dishes slowly, the rhythm soothing. The chair sat by the window, bathed in lamplight. I didn't move it. I only hung a small sign from its back. One simple phrase carved into the wood. "For who shows up." I didn't know if they'd ever fully return, or if showing up once would be enough. But that night, for the first time in years, the silence in the room felt alive, filled with the sound of healing beginning to breathe. And if you're hearing this, maybe you've known an empty chair too. Maybe you've waited for someone who never came. Don't let that wait define you. Build your own place, sit tall, and when you can, pull up another chair for someone else. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you, subscribe to Vengeance Within, where every silence finds its voice again.